Good evening, and welcome to the Dixie Fire West Zone Community Briefing. My name is Dan Olson, and I'm the Information Officer for CAL FIRE Incident Management Team 3. I'd like to start this evening by giving you a brief summary of the current conditions in our state. Currently, over 10,000 federal, state, tribal, and local firefighters are assigned to 11 active, large wildfires within the state. Nearly 1.1 million acres have burned this year. That's an increase of over 234,000 acres versus the same time frame last year. Currently for the Dixie Fire, 578,897 acres have burned, and the fire remains at 31% contained. It still remains as the second largest fire and 14th most destructive fire in our state's history. The current fire perimeter is approximately 500 miles, and this still is the same as walking from Susanville to Boise, Idaho. Currently assigned to this incident, we have over 5,963 personnel, 516 fire engines, 203 dozers, 103 hand crews, and 20 helicopters, as well as multiple fixed-wing aircraft. The smoke still continues to linger over the fire and hinder our ability to fly, but when the opportunities present, and the air becomes clear, our air assets deliver drops to the identified areas. Additionally, our damage inspections teams continue to work throughout the course of the fire to identify the structures that have been damaged and destroyed. In Plumas County, 1,147 structures have been destroyed, 76 damaged, and 1,498 have been identified with no damage. In Lassen County, 3 have been destroyed, 0 damaged, and 2 with no damage. In Tehama, 30 structures have been identified as destroyed, 5 damaged, and 62 with no damage and saved. Overall, 1,180 structures have been destroyed on the Dixie Fire. 81 have sustained damage, and we continue to be happy to report that 1,562 have no damage and have been saved. Again, these inspections are ongoing and the numbers are subject to change. In terms of impact locally, 5 counties have now been impacted by this fire: Butte, Tehama, Plumas, Lassen, and now Shasta. In regarding to the folks that have been affected, as a result of this incident, over 28,000 residents are currently evacuated. 348 are staying in shelters, and we have established 3 temporary shelters in the area. We ask that you pay attention to and abide the evacuation orders that are being issued. There are many things that you can procrastinate on: paying a cell phone bill, mowing the lawn, but evacuation warnings are not one of them. Please help us by taking care of yourself out of harm's way so that we can focus on fighting the fire. Now is the time to be ready. Don't wait until it's too late. And with that, I'd like to go ahead and get into our speaker introductions. For your first speaker tonight, Incident Meteorologist Joseph Goudsworth.
Thank you, Dan, and good evening, everyone. Once again, it is my pleasure to be here, and we're halfway through our wind event. We did see those winds pick up. We saw wind gusts anywhere between 15 and 25 miles an hour. Those really picked up once that air did clear. Now, the winds are going to settle down tonight. So we're going to see maybe a little bit more smoke come on in during the overnight hours, but it looks like we're going to see those winds pick up once again late tomorrow morning and continuing for the majority of the day. Now, we've been sitting under this big area of high pressure for about a week now, but that's gone. It's been replaced by a dry cold front. And that dry cold front is going to work its way across the area tomorrow, and that's going to pick up our winds. So once that smoke does get on out of here by late morning, we're thinking, look for those southwest winds to pick up. We're thinking southwest winds around 15 to 30 miles an hour, and there could be gusts as high as 40 miles an hour, especially on the ridge tops and any part of the mountains that are exposed. Winds may be a little bit less in the valleys, but you're still going to have that wind channeled, and that could also raise those wind speeds a little bit in those areas as well. It's not going to be quite as hot, but it is going to remain quite dry. So with that in mind, the National Weather Service offices nearby have issued a red flag warning for a good part of tomorrow, meaning we could see increased fire behavior and a critical fire weather pattern is in place. Now that dry cold front is going to go across the incident tomorrow afternoon, very late in the afternoon, probably more like early evening to mid-evening. There's going to be a wind shift to the northwest. Eventually those winds are going to turn around to the northeast, and those northeast winds will continue through the remainder of the night. That'll keep the wind speeds a bit on the elevated side, more than they usually have been at night, maybe say 10 to 20 miles an hour through the nighttime hours, and those northeast winds will stay in place during the day Wednesday, but we are going to cool down probably a good 10 degrees on Wednesday from what we're going to see tomorrow. So, a quick summary: gusty southwest winds tomorrow, turning around to the northwest, and then eventually the northeast, and then hopefully things will quiet down starting Wednesday afternoon. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Joe. Our next speaker is fire behavior analyst Brian Newman.
Okay, good evening. So across the fire today, because of this increase in wind speed that we saw and the lifting of the smoke, we did see an increase in activity across the fire. Starting over on the very western edge of the fire, over in the Morgan fire area, this is very, very steep terrain with very thick fuels out there. And so we had material roll down the hills and allowed the fire to grow today, aided by that fresh wind coming in, increasing the wind speeds across there and increasing the fire behavior associated with it. So that is progressing to the north and east up into the towards the national park area there. But that's one of the areas that we saw some increase in activity today. Coming across into the main fire area near the Warner Valley area, we saw some increase in activity there as well. But overall, a lot of that just stayed within the perimeter and continued going to the north and progressing up towards and into the park area, especially up towards the top end of it and then the last end sector towards Highway 44. It did not get to Highway 44 today, and it did not threaten the lines as much as we had maybe anticipated. There was a lot of interior heat in here today that really got some fresh wind on it and stood up and made some big columns, but it burned intensely, but it didn't burn quickly. Coming around into in the Westwood sector towards the area north of Westwood itself and north of Chester. Again, a lot of heat interior there, a lot of activity within the burn perimeter as that smoke lifted out and the wind got in there and allowed it to really get some activity going in there. We did see some spot fires that were thrown out to the north and east, but those were relatively short-range spotting, and they were able to be contained by the crews out there today. Coming across over onto the Hamilton Mountain area, we saw quite a bit of activity in here because of the elevation, the thick, heavy fuels, and just the topography mixed with that wind that really aided that fire growth today. So overall, the fire did make some progress, intense progress, but it is still west of Susanville and is burning with intensity in this mountainous area here, but is not making any large runs currently. Coming down a little further down to the south and the east, the fire also experienced some long-range spotting out in this area as that wind got in there and allowed the fire to pick up in an activity, large column that you probably saw from town, a pyrocumulus type of development, and allowed the fire to spot over into the Thompson Pass area. And I'll let our operations chief speak about the specifics of that fire specific itself, but we did experience some long-range spotting because of that large column development over there. As we go through the night tonight, we expect it to calm down as the smoke settles back in and the wind starts to die down. But tomorrow, we can expect a very similar cycle in terms of fire activity with that increased wind that we're expecting to see similar to today. And so we expect a lot of the same areas that we saw activity today to experience activity tomorrow.
Our next speaker is Operations Section Chief Mark Brunton.
Good evening. So we had a very active day throughout the fire, and I'll just highlight a couple of the areas that we saw quite a bit of activity today. So throughout most of the Westwood sector on the western part, pretty calm, pretty static. We didn't have much activity until we got right here on the sector break between the Lassen sector and the Westwood sector. Highway 36, we're going to be in the process of doing a burn operation to tie that in before the adverse weather winds kick in tomorrow. That'll seal this up, so that'll provide protection into the peninsula and the communities of Westwood. Moving further east, we've been continuing to work closely with our partners with Incident Management Team 4 and now transitioning to Incident Management Team 1. So surging resources, nothing too much of significance other than the work in the Duffy Group, which is paralleling Highway 36 just outside of Susanville, opening up some of our control and lines to provide protection for that community with the anticipation of the winds coming tomorrow. Some buildup of the fire activity, as Chief Newman talked about, or F-band, but nothing making any sort of major runs or anything of that nature, but we are prepared to take action as needed. Where we are seeing some activity is predominantly in the Janesville branch. As we speak, we are experiencing that some spotting conditions that took place about an hour ago, increase of those spots, and the fire activity. We're seeing that in just south, basically, of Janesville, 395. Cradle Valley is one of the areas in roughly south and west of Clarks Creek. So got some spots established in there. We've surged resources. We already had a plan in place and stood up for structure defense of Janesville. So that's already been in play for a number of days, pre-planned. When expecting this kind of conditions, we've had resources there. As we started the spotting, we've surged a number of resources. So at this point in time, we've sent 5 strike teams of engines into that area, along with a number of our heavy equipment dozers. Our aircraft are working at the best they can. Right now, the conditions only warrant us to be able to work rotor wing, although as it opens up, we'll get some fixed wing aircraft there. However, we are getting near the nighttime hours in which we cannot fly aircraft. So we're butting up against that, but we're throwing everything we can at that at this point in time. But we do have our structure defense actively engaged within the community. And then basically evacuations have been established for Milford. And then just as before I came up, evacuations into Janesville and further up. So it's a dynamic situation, one that we're going to be monitoring throughout the evening. We're surging our resources to that as we have as part of our plan, and we'll continue to do so to make sure that that community is rendered safe. As you heard from the IMET and F-band, that we're going to have some of the wind subside a little bit tonight, so that'll help us jump on these spot fires. And then, however, we're going to be ready for tomorrow, where we are going to see a shift in the pattern, and we are expecting that increase, but we are prepared with our plans. We have a multi-phased surge plan to surge resources wherever we need throughout the fire. So we're prepared the best we can to take care of those needs. Moving into the north of 36 into our Lassen sector. Most activity took place was from a lightning strike a number of days ago in the Morgan Spike area, and Highway 89, 36. Yesterday it got really active in the late afternoon and started burning pretty actively. We instituted a firing plan today that was been an all-day event, basically burning from the park down 89 and then hooking into Highway 36, going down 36. And that has had success, and that is boxed in at this point, that fire. So that is a good thing, because we do not want it traveling to the west into Tehama County. With the winds, it will push it towards the park, and although pushing fire is in any direction is not an ideal, but in this particular situation, it is a more ideal situation because it does put us into more favorable ground and fuels in which we can actively fight the fire with more success. So that is a good win for us today, considering the circumstances. Within the park, we haven't seen any significant fire activity or erratic fire activity. There is fire within there. We have plans that we've had in place throughout the number of weeks. They're instituting those plans, putting those lines into play, and so far we're having success for our objectives within the park, and we will continue to do so as we continue to surge more resources in there, and we've got a good plan going there. Along the top in Division Romeo, we've had a lot of good success, heavy mop-up, lines in play. no factor with our winds, and so we've had good success there. Moving into Tango, that again also is into a heavy mop-up situation. Did have a couple spots outside, able to pick up, but again, with these fuels as dry as they are, and with just even a little bit of heat, even further interior, they are being pushed out by this wind event. So we are actively engaged in all suppression operations, whether it be active firefighting or into the mop-up stage. We are flying our aircraft when we have the opportunities to do so and utilizing that tool in our toolbox to achieve our objectives and complete the mission.
Thank you, Mark. Our next speaker is Federal Agency Representative Jay Lusher.
Good evening. With the change in conditions and additional evacuations, the Bureau of Land Management would like to announce the closure of all BLM lands south of Highway 36, west of Highway 395, north and east of the Lassen National Forest boundary, and the Biz Johnson Trail north of Highway 36. During these trying times, we continue to work as one force. These drought-stressed fuels, combined with the red flag conditions, especially the winds, have challenged our firefighters all day today and will continue to challenge them tomorrow. All forces continue to work together collectively, from every firefighter on the ground through both incident management teams and all of the agencies supporting them. We also look to the community to work together to support each other to get us through such a critical time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, we'll be presenting a pre-recorded video from the Plumas County Sheriff's Office.
Good evening, my name is Deputy Chandler Pay. I'm the Public Information Officer for the Plumas County Sheriff's Office and Office of Emergency Services. We wanted to bring you a quick update tonight on some things we have going around the county. First, we want to clarify some repopulation questions that we receive. We receive several questions per day regarding repopulation. When can an individual get back to a certain area? And we just want to say that there's a lot of hazard mitigation that has to be done, which means we have to clean up stuff to make it safe. We have to take down hazard trees. We have to ensure that power lines are not an issue. We have to ensure that power can be restored to areas. So there's many things that go into the process of allowing repopulation, including making sure you have a safe route in and out of the area should we have to re-evacuate if you were to be repopulated. So again, we understand everybody wants to get back into their homes. We want you to get back into your homes, and we are working as quickly and efficiently as possible to get you back into your homes. Please know that. With the wind event this evening and into tomorrow, we are anticipating some possible changes to our evacuation orders. Those will come out later this evening possibly, and into tomorrow, and even maybe the next day depending on how the wind goes. So please continue to follow the plumascounty.us website under the Dixie Fire tab, and also the Plumas County Sheriff's Office Facebook page for those updates on any changes to our evacuation orders and warnings. Additionally, I want to remind everybody that we are continuing security patrols in all of the evacuated areas and warning areas. Our animal services are also providing help for any of the animals that were left in evacuated areas. So if you have an animal that was left behind in an evacuated area that you either need evacuated or you need fed, please contact Plumas County Animal Services at 530-283-3673. We want to thank the community for their patience in this incident. We know this has been a long, drawn-out incident, and we still have time ahead of us. So we want to thank you for your patience and for supporting us during this incident, and we also want to thank all of the personnel working on this incident. Thank you again for your time, and have a good night.
Our next speaker is CAL FIRE Unit Chief for the Lassen Modoc Unit, Scott Packwood.
Good evening, Scott Packwood, Unit Chief, Lassen Modoc Unit. As mentioned, as forecasted, today was a very challenging day with the predicted wind coming to fruition and the fire behavior increasing due to that predicted weather. Firefighters were challenged, as mentioned, all day long. We had active fire increasing, which added to additional evacuations implemented in the northwest of Susanville along Highway 36 and in the Gold Run, Cheney Creek area, as well as the Janeville area, all the way up from Bass Hill down into Milford. Fire is currently active up on top of the escarpment and visible from Janesville up above Hicks Road. So as everybody's talked about, operations, IMET, we're in for another very challenging day tomorrow. Once we get through tomorrow, the weather is going to be more favorable and hopefully stabilize, and we'll be able to make a lot better progress. So as mentioned, everybody's working extremely hard, tirelessly to protect the communities, take care of the citizens while actively, safely fighting the fire. Please bear with us as we get through this next 24 to 36 hours and hope that we get to better weather conditions and the fire moderates and we can get an upper hand on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Our final speaker for this evening is Incident Commander Billy C.
Good evening. Obviously, I want to start off explaining exactly what's going on. There's quite a bit of movement out on the fire line. We're moving resources around and engaged on the fire front as the wind has pushed the fire around and endangered some of the communities in this general area. Obviously, we're doing a pre-recording tonight of this briefing just because of the activity level and the engagement from the majority of our command staff that's out there, including our law enforcement partners. Everyone's actively engaged. Multiple residents and community members are receiving multiple evacuation notices during this recorded briefing. I understand it's a trying time for this area and for the 5 counties that have been impacted. We all understand that. We have multiple resources engaged. We planned for this. We knew the weather was coming. We briefed our firefighters to engage when necessary, where necessary, to prevent and minimize damage to anyone's personal property and still gain success on the fire ground. Obviously, you heard we're gaining some success on the west side of this incident. We're going to continue to engage this fire when appropriate, when we can maintain firefighter safety and look out for your best interest. That's the #1 key right now. We're working hand in hand with our partners in the East Zone. We're sharing resources back and forth across the line where the fire has engaged and moved around. It doesn't matter where it is on this incident. We're surging resources from both sides into it and working collectively in your best interest. Thank you.
In closing, we ask that you please continue to post your questions online. We will make every effort to try and answer them and keep you informed. We ask for your patience and understanding under these current circumstances and with limited staffing on hand to be able to get you those answers, but we will follow through and make sure that we are providing you information. We will get through this together. Take care and have a good night.